Myoho Renge Kyo Nam. Myoho Renge Kyo Nam. Myoho Renge Kyo. And we continue now with influences of incorrect teachings or the way in which incorrect influence affects and spreads. Thus, some of them, remembering how their master looked in life, fashion wooden sculptures and paintings of him, while others, putting resolute mind in his perverse teachings, carve wood blocks with which to print his ugly words. These writings they scatter about throughout the area bounded by the seas, carrying them beyond the cities and into the countryside until wherever honor is paid, it is to the practices of this school, and wherever alms are given, it is to the priests of this school, or teachers. As a result, we see people cutting off the fingers of the images of Shakyamuni and refashioning them to form the gesture of Amida, or converting the temples formerly dedicated to Medicine Master and thus come one of the eastern region, and replacing his statues with those of Amida, the thus come one of the western land. Or we find this ceremony of copying the Lotus Sutra, which has been carried out for over 400 years on Mount Hay, longer than that, but he's saying on Mount Hay, speaking of Japan, being suspended, and the copying of the Three Pure Land Sutra substituted in its place. Or the annual lectures on the doctrines of the great teacher Dendai, being replaced by lectures on the teachings of Shantao. Indeed, the slanderous people and their associates are too numerous to count. Are they not destroyers of the Buddha? Are they not destroyers of the law? Are they not destroyers of the Buddhist order? And all their distorted teachings derive from Nembutsu chosen above all. Alas, how pitiful that people should turn their backs on the true words of prohibition spoken by the thus come one Shakyamuni. How tragic that they should heed the gross and deluded words of this ignorant priest. If we hope to bring order and tranquility to the world without further delay, we must put an end to these slanders of the law that fill the country. The guest said, if we are to put an end to these people who slander the law and do away with those who violate the prohibitions of the Buddha, then are we to condemn them to death as described in the sutra passages you've just cited? If we do that, then we are ourselves guilty of inflicting injury and death upon others, and will suffer the consequences, will we not? In the Great Collection Sutra, the Buddha says, quote, if a person shaves his head and puts on clerical robes, then, whether that person observes the precepts or violates them, both heavenly and human beings should give him alms. In doing so, they are giving alms and support to me, for that person is my son. But if men beat that person, they are beating my son, and if they curse and insult him, they are reviling me. If we stop to consider, we must realize that regardless of whether one is good or bad, right or wrong, if he is a priest, then he deserves to have alms and nourishment extended to him. For how could one beat and insult the son and still not cause grief and sorrow to the father? The Brahmins of the Bamboo Staff School, who killed the venerable Madagalyana, have for a long time been sunk in the depths of the hell of incessant suffering. Because Devadatta murdered the nun Utpalyavarna, he has for a long time gasped in the flames of the Avicii hell. Examples from earlier ages make the matter perfectly clear, and latter ages fear this offense most of all. You speak of punishing those who slander the law, but to do so would violate the Buddha's prohibition. I can hardly believe that such a course would be right. How can you justify that? The host said, Nichiren, you have clearly seen the sutra passages that I have cited, and yet you can ask a question like that. Are they beyond the power of your mind to comprehend, or do you fail to understand the reasoning behind them? I certainly have no intention of censuring the sons of the Buddha. My only hatred is for the act of slandering the law. According to the Buddhist teachings, prior to Shakyamuni's slanderous monks would have incurred the death penalty. But since the time of Shakyamuni, the one who can endure, the giving of alms to slanderous monks is forbidden in the sutra teachings. Now, if all the 4 kinds of Buddhists within the 4 seas and the 10,000 lands would only cease giving alms to wicked priests and instead all come over to the side of the good, then how could any more troubles rise to plague us, or disasters come to confront us? With this, the guest moved off his mat, and in a gesture of respect straightened the collar of his robe and said, the Buddhist teachings vary greatly, and it is difficult to investigate each doctrine in full. I have had many doubts and perplexities, and have been unable to distinguish right from wrong. Nevertheless, this work by the sage Honen, Nembutsu chosen above all, does in fact exist. And it lumps together all the various Buddhas, sutras, bodhisattvas, and deities, and says that one should discard, close, ignore, and abandon them. The meaning of the text is perfectly clear. And as a result of this, the sages have departed from the nation, the benevolent deities have left their dwelling places, hunger and thirst fill the world, and disease and pestilence spread widely. Now, by citing passages from a wide variety of scriptures, you have clearly demonstrated the rights and wrongs of the matter. Therefore, I have completely forsaken my earlier mistaken convictions, and my ears and eyes have been opened on point after point. There can be no doubt that all people, from the ruler on down to the general populace, rejoice in and desire the stability of the nation and the peace of the world. If we can quickly put an end to the alms that are given to these ichantikas and ensure that continuing support is instead given to the host of true priests and nuns, if we can still these white waves that trouble the ocean of the Buddha and cut down these green groves that overgrow the mountain of the law, then the world may become as peaceful as it was in the golden ages of Fu Qi and Shen Yun, and the nation may flourish as it did under the sage rulers Yao and Shun. After that, there will be time to dip into the waters of the law and to decide which are shallow doctrines and which are deep, and to pay honor to the pillars and beams that support the house of the Buddha. The host exclaimed with delight, the dove has changed into a hawk, the sparrow into a clam. How gratifying! You have associated with a friend in the orchid room and have become as straight and as mugwort growing among hemp. If you will truly give consideration to the troubles I have been describing, and put entire resolute mind and conviction in these words of mine, then the winds will blow gently, the waves will be calm, and in no time at all we will enjoy bountiful harvests. But a person's heart may change with the times, and the nature of a thing may alter with its surroundings, just as the moon on the water will be tossed about by the waves, or the soldiers in the vanguard will be cowed by the swords of the enemy. So although at this moment you may say you believe in my words, I fear that later you will forget them completely. Now, if we wish first of all to bring security to the nation and to pray for our present and future lives, then we must hasten to examine and consider the situation and take measures as soon as possible to remedy it. Why do I say this? Because of the 7 types of disasters described in the Medicine Master Sutra, 5 have already occurred. Only 2 have yet to appear. The calamity of invasion from foreign lands and the calamity of revolt within one's own domain. And of the 3 calamities mentioned in the Great Collection Sutra, 2 have already made their appearance. Only 1 remains, the disaster of warfare. If you don't see the parallels with the situation we're in the United States today, or the rest of the world, the different types of disaster and calamity enumerated in the Golden Light Sutra have arisen one after the other, only that described as marauders from other regions invading and plundering the nation has yet to materialize. This is the only trouble that has not yet come. And of the 7 disasters listed in the Benevolent King's Sutra, 6 are now upon us in full force. Only 1 has not yet appeared, the calamity that occurs when enemies rise up on all 4 sides and invade the nation. Moreover, as the Benevolent King's Sutra says, when a nation becomes disordered, it is the spirits that first show signs of rampancy. Because the spirits become rampant, all the people of the nation become disordered. Now, if we examine the present situation carefully in the light of this passage, we will see that the various spirits have, for some time, been rampant. And many of the people have perished. If the first predicted misfortune in the sutra has already occurred, as is obvious, then how can we doubt that the latter disasters will follow? If in punishment for the evil doctrines that are upheld, the troubles that have yet to appear should fall upon us one after the other, then it will be too late to act, will it not? Emperors and kings have their foundation in the state and bring peace and order to the age. Ministers and commoners hold possession of their fields and gardens and supply the needs of the world. But if marauders come from other regions to invade the nation, or if revolt breaks out within the domain and people's lands are seized and plundered, how can there be anything but terror and confusion? If the nation is destroyed and people's homes are wiped out, then where can one flee for safety? If you care anything about your personal security, you should first of all meditate, pray for order and tranquility throughout the 4 quarters of the land, should you not? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. It seems to me that when people are in this world, they all fear what their lot may be in the life to come. So it is that they put their resolute mind and conviction in distorted doctrines and pay honor to slanderous teachings. It distresses me that they should be so confused about right and wrong, and at the same time I feel pity that having embraced Buddhism, they should have chosen the wrong kind. With the power of resolute mind and conviction that is in their hearts, why must they recklessly give credence to distorted doctrines? If they do not shake off these delusions, and they cling to but continue to harbor erroneous views, then they will quickly leave this world of the living and surely fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Thus, the Great Collection Sutra says, quote, though for countless existences in the past, the ruler of a state may have practiced the giving of alms, observed the precepts, and cultivated wisdom, if he sees that my teaching is in danger of perishing and stands idly by without doing anything to protect it, then all the inestimable roots of goodness that he has planted through the practices just mentioned will be entirely wiped out. Before long, the ruler will fall gravely ill, and after his life has come to an end, he will be reborn in the great hell, and the same fate will befall the ruler's consort, his heir, the ministers, high ministers of the state, the lords of cities, the village heads and generals, the magistrates of districts, and other officials. The Benevolent King Sutra says, quote, "If persons destroy the teachings of the Buddha, they will have no filial sons, no harmony with their 6 kinds of relatives, and no aid from the heavenly deities and dragons. Disease and evil demons will come day after day to torment them. Disasters will descend on them incessantly, and misfortunes will dog them wherever they go. And when they die, they will fall into the realms of hell, hungry spirits, and animals. Even if they should be reborn as human beings, they will be destined to become soldiers or slaves. Retribution will follow as an echo follows a sound, or a shadow follows a form. Someone writing at night may put out the lamp, but the words he has written will still remain. It is the same with the effect of the deeds we perform in the threefold world." The second volume of the Lotus Sutra says, "If a person fails to have resolute mind and conviction, but instead slanders this sutra," in other words, resolute mind in the Lotus Sutra, "and instead slanders this sutra, when his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell." And in the never disparaging chapter in the 7th volume, it says, "For 1,000 kalpas they underwent great suffering in the Avicii hell." In the Nirvana Sutra, we read, "If a person separates himself from good friends, refuses to listen to the correct teaching, and instead embraces evil teachings, then as a result he will sink down into the Avicii hell, where the size of his body will become 84,000 yohanas in total length and breadth." When we examine this wide variety of sutras, we find that they all stress how grave a matter it is to slander the correct teachings. How pitiful that people should all go out of the gate of the correct teachings and enter so deep into the prison of these distorted doctrines. How stupid that they should fall one after another into the snares of these evil doctrines and remain for so long entangled in this net of slanderous teachings. They lose their way in these mists and miasm, and sink down amid the raging flames of hell. How could one not grieve? How could one not suffer? Therefore, you must quickly reform the tenets that you hold in your heart and embrace the true vehicle, the one true vehicle, the single good doctrine of the Lotus Sutra. If you do so, then the threefold world will become the Buddha land. Now that sentence alone validates everything I've been saying about death, rebirth, this life, the worlds, the 10 worlds. If you embrace the one true teaching revealed in the Lotus Sutra, then the threefold world, this world, the world we're in, samsara, will become the Buddha land. You see, it's not a separate place. It's here and now. It says it right there, clearly. And how could a Buddha land ever decline? The Buddha land is in the mind. It's here and now because it's in your mind, already there. The regions in the 10 directions will all become treasure realms, and how could a treasure realm ever suffer harm? If you live in a country that knows no decline or diminution, in a land that suffers no harm or disruption, then your body will find peace and security, and your mind will be calm and untroubled. You must believe my words. Heed what I say. The guest said, Since Since it concerns both this life and the lives to come, this is just moment to moment, right? Who could fail to be cautious in a matter such as this? Who could fail to agree with you? Now when I examine the passages you've cited from the sutras and see exactly what the Buddha has said, I realize that slandering the law is a very grave fault indeed, that violating the law is in truth a terrible offense. Who's it offending? Your own Buddhahood, your own mind. I have put all my resolute mind and conviction in one Buddha alone, Amida, and rejected all the other Buddhas. I have honored the 3 Pure Land Sutras and set aside the other sutras. But this was not due to any distorted ideas of my own conception. I was simply obeying the words of the eminent men of the past, and the same is true of all the other persons in the 10 directions. But now I realize that to do so means to exhaust oneself in futile efforts in this life and to fall into the Avicii hell in the life to come. The texts you have cited are perfectly clear on this point, and their arguments are detailed. They leave no room for doubt. From now on, with your kind instruction to guide me, I wish to continue dispelling the ignorance from my mind. I hope we may set about as quickly as possible, taking measures to deal with these slanders against the law and to bring peace to the world without delay, thus ensuring that we may live in safety in this life and enjoy good fortune in the life to come. But it is not enough that I alone should accept and have resolute mind and conviction in your words. We must see to it that others as well are warned of their errors. And with that, we come to the close of this Gosho. And I want to take a moment to review something that I harp on constantly. If it's not obvious to you by now, especially by the end of this Gosho, what we are exhorted to do, Nichiren pleads with us to do, is study broadly. The only antidote, the only certain antidote to ignorance, being misled, and grasping at things that are not real or do not hold, is to study beyond them. Whenever we narrow our field of study, we grossly endanger our understanding. Understand that our Buddha nature, our Buddha mind, is all-knowing. In other words, there are no parameters to it. There is only the exegesis of embracing all phenomena with the mind. There are no limits. The limits are the limits we accept. Whether we accept them willingly or we are manipulated into accepting them, it is always the case that our mind has been narrowed. Study broadly. Study daily. Never stop studying. You may not even realize that you are formulating, with the help of our wonderful monkeys, we're constantly reducing. This is the samsaric reality of the human condition, the human mind. We're pattern makers, and in making patterns, we hack away stuff to essentials. And unfortunately, as we do that, we drop off certain things, and we start to create, karmically, our Ichinen Senzen, right? Karmically, we start to narrow things into, even though we've more broadly expanded our epistemology, our sense of things, we still are trying to parameterize it into a vision, I know, me-ness. Our ego wants to say, this is the knowledge that I have. Instead of understanding that the knowledge that you have is a tool to perceive everything, which is limitless. But the idea of limitlessness makes our monkeys panic, because it implies that there's more than just us. Well, what are we holding on to when we hold on to us, me, I? It's like trying to know yourself as just the front that you see in a mirror, forgetting all about the back. Is that possible? Can we do that? In our minds we can. But isn't it silly when you think about it that way? How can we have a front if we have no back, or sides for that matter? This is what happens in life, and certainly in Buddhism. When we only look narrowly at one favorite teaching, we cease to perceive the complexity of the entire teachings. Even non-Buddhist teachings have something to contribute. What do they contribute? Not in words, but in the broadness of our perception. We have to keep exercising our mind, continuously giving it food for thought. When we do that, everything comes back to familiar realizations. But those realizations, just like chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, they are not magic words. I've heard people ask, I'm not going to chant magic words. They're not magic words. They're invocations. What are they invocations of? They are invocations of the Buddha nature, of the entire universe and universes, and what those universes are spawned from. The process, not the thing, the process. This is why the Lotus Sutra is preeminent and ultimate, because it is the cap. It is the mountaintop. The mountaintop is meaningless without the mountain, is it not? I mean, I could go on and on and on and on with analogies and similes and metaphors, and this is what Buddhism is, right? Why do we resort to this? Because it's impossible to talk about it directly. It can only be experienced. This is the science of Buddhism. It's based on experience, real experience, palpable, tangible, observable experience. It's not made up. If we can align in that reality, then how could our world around us not mirror that state of being? This is how we bring about peace. And this is the Bodhisattva way. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for participating. I so deeply appreciate your participation. Thank you.